In defining the word sexism, we will strive to avoid making simplistic claims about the nature of sexism in order to avoid the trap of seeing anti-sexist action as only an act of political correctness. Political correctness is an accusation. It refers to the excessive attention to the potential emotional impact of words and actions on those who are seen as outside the norm. Examples of political correctness include using the terms vertical challenged for short or personhole cover for manhole or inspection cover. The emphasis of the course is not on language reform or watching what you say by paying attention to an abstracted set of rules, but about building trusting relationships that lead to success and using questions to discern the impact of our choices. We build trust by engaging in speaking and doings that declare, "I can be trusted." We must all come to the recognition that when a formal or informal power balance exists in a relationship, one must pay strict attention to setting boundaries on one's behavior. You will need to pay strict attention to acting in line with an external set of professional standards when, number one, you feel powerful or successful, when you feel very comfortable in an organization or relationship, or when you are trying to become comfortable. I'd like you to take a moment now to reflect on which of the above resonates with you. Let's turn now to defining the concept of sexism. There are three possible ideas for its definition as follows. Number one, sexism is a deliberate conspiracy by men to remain in a position of dominance and privilege. Number two, it is a complex cluster of social and political forces and ideas about gender that predate the current generation of men and women. Or number three, it is a collection of cultural attitudes about the roles and abilities of each gender that both men and women are socialized into and reinvent each day through their actions. Let's unpack the first idea, that sexism is a deliberate conspiracy by men to remain in a position of dominance and privilege. I think that idea is too simplistic and does not acknowledge that the machinery of oppression predates the current generation of men and women. In other words, we did not construct the machinery. It exists and has always existed. Let's explore the second idea that could be used to define the term sexism. Perhaps sexism is just a cluster of social and political forces and ideas about gender that predate the current generation of men and women. I'd like to agree with that definition because no one in existence today created the current slate of gender norms that lead to unfair treatment. So let's consider that idea a valid way of thinking about sexism. Let's explore the third possible way of defining sexism. We could think of sexism as a collection of cultural attitudes about the roles and abilities of each gender that both men and women are socialized into and reinvent each day through their actions. And yes, I like that characterization of sexism. It is a living force that must be maintained and reinforced. This means it can be stopped if everyone takes ownership of not maintaining the machinery of oppression. We could use the term cultural knowledge to capture one aspect of this machinery. Cultural knowledge, then, is the sum total of ideas a culture holds about the roles of men and women. The nature of sexism has changed over the last 15 years. Sexism, like racism, is less overt and more subtle. Therefore, it is important to become discerning of statements and actions that create or promote an unfair or irrelevant distinction between genders. Sexism, then, can be defined as a complex cluster of social and political forces and ideas about gender that predate the current generation of men and women. It is also a collection of cultural attitudes about the roles and abilities of each gender. I'd like you to take the time now to identify which one of the two ideas you would use going forward to define sexism.